Welcome to LA Controversial, your inside guide to the seedier side of life in the spotlight. He shocks us with his politically incorrect characters, Ali G, Borat and Bruno. But dig a little deeper and you'll see there's a lot more to Sacha Baron Cohen than cheap chuckles. He's in fact fearlessly shining a light on the prejudice and ignorance that underpin our everyday lives. But of course, this kind of fearless satire does not come without cost, and the British comedian is certainly no stranger to controversy. His first big gig, the Ali G Show, featured interviews with politicians and public figures who were unaware that Ali G was not a real person. His brash line of questioning on sex and drugs evoking hilarious, socially insightful responses. The feature film, Ali G in the House, was released in 2002. And at its premiere, Sacha was in a typically mischievous mood.
In it, we play a very wonderful part of this geezer who was very good looking, very intelligent, and with a massive beast. You get it? I was playing myself.
Sacha perfected his confrontational satire with his next creation, Kazakhstani cultural attaché Borat. The curiously titled film, Borat, Cultural Learnings of America for Make-Benefit Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan, featured Sacha's Pamela Anderson-obsessed comic creation Borat, travelling across the United States in an ice cream van. In the mockumentary, Borat's sexism, racism and anti-Semitism allowed the real-world Americans he encountered to drop their guard and brutally expose their own intolerance. Ironically, the film went on to enjoy huge box office success in the US. The government of Kazakhstan threatened legal action based on the depiction of their nation. But Sacha was unperturbed, maintaining the relentless satire.
Recent advertisements on television and in media about my nation of Kazakhstan, saying that women are treated equally and that all religions are tolerated. These are disgusting fabrications. These claims are part of a propaganda campaign against our country by evil nitwits Uzbekistan.
The world got its first taste of Sacha's next comic creation when gay Austrian fashionista Bruno thrust his backside into Eminem's face at the MTV Movie Awards. Bruno took a swipe at everything from the fashion industry and homophobia to celebrity adoption of disadvantaged children.
You know, my baby at the moment, I've got one, over cool, he's black, that's really cool enough. And he does shices in his underpants, but you know, my ex-boyfriend did as well, so it's not a big deal.
The Bruno feature film brought legal trouble Sacha's way when he interviewed alleged real-world terrorist Ayman Abu Aita and asked to be abducted in the name of getting famous. But Ayman later claimed he had no involvement with acts of violence and brought a lawsuit against Sacha and Universal Studios, claiming the homosexual association could get him killed by the Palestinians. It was an ironic touch to the Bruno story and only rammed home the point that Sacha was trying to make. Intolerance towards homosexuality is far from a laughing matter. He was an icon of the glam rock 70s, with his out-there shiny jumpsuits, silver platform shoes and bouffant wigs. But a 2006 conviction for committing obscene acts with minors saw Gary Glitter come crashing down to earth, with no hope of redemption. Born Paul Francis Gadd, Gary Glitter recorded a string of British top 10 hits in his heyday, including Leader of the Gang, the rather unfortunately titled Do You Wanna Touch Me, and Rock and Roll Part 2, which is still played at major sporting events in America. His descent into infamy began back in the 90s, when a computer repairman found thousands of pornographic images of children on his laptop computer. The shameful revelation earned him a 4-month jail term in the UK. Looking for a new start, he went to Asia and made his home in a seaside villa in Vung Tau, a resort in Vietnam, where he became famous for inviting underage girls to parties at his home. Allegations of child molestation swiftly followed, and Gary was arrested at the Ho Chi Minh City airport, trying to make his way to Bangkok. At his trial, Gary maintained that his victims were like his grandchildren and only slept in his room for fear of ghosts. The court didn't buy it, and he was convicted of committing obscene acts with girls aged 10 and 11.
Are you sorry for what you've done?
No, I'm not. I haven't done anything. I'm innocent.
You've been found guilty.
I am innocent. It's a conspiracy.
Right in the front, guys. They're right in the front, champ.
You know who.
Not surprisingly, Gary appealed against his sentence, doing his best to keep his cool.
If you are released today, where will you go?
Have a beer.
Are your plans to go back to the UK?
Yes, of course.
But his travel plans had to be put on hold, with the court upholding the conviction. After 3 years in the slammer, Gary tried to find a new home in Thailand or Hong Kong upon his release. Both countries refused him entry, and he found his way back to England, where he was ordered to sign the UK Sex Offenders Register and remain on that list indefinitely.
Now that he's obliged to sign the register, there are sorts of requirements which he will, of course, absolutely strictly comply with. I have no information about whether he intends to travel abroad or not. Quite frankly, being realistic about it, which country is going to accept him in the present time?
It seems the future for Gary isn't exactly glittering. Magic Johnson is one of the most highly honoured players in the history of American basketball. But perhaps the greatest headline of his career came in 1991, when he announced that he'd contracted HIV. The son of a General Motors assembly worker, Irvin Johnson Jr. was given the mantle Magic for the way he played the game at high school. The skills and talents he showed took him all the way to the top, leading the Los Angeles Lakers to 4 NBA titles in the 80s. He first learned he'd contracted HIV via a physical examination before the 1991 NBA season. He initially made public claims he didn't know how he contracted the virus, but later confessed to a history of multiple sexual female partners. Despite the controversy surrounding his condition, Magic has remained a constant icon of African America. When questioned on Bob Geldof's shunning of African stars for the Live Aid concert series, Magic was philosophical.
Live Aid is incredible, and the fact that they're able to get all these performers to come and perform for free too. It shows that the entertainment industry cares, and I think that's the biggest signal that it sends.
With a business empire worth an estimated $700 million, Magic has decided there's no need to rock the political boat. One major controversy in the life of a US basketballing legend is clearly quite enough. Part national treasure, part international incident. Amy Winehouse has fought off all comers to hold on to her crown as the UK's queen of controversy. Over the past few years, she's racked up such an impressive tally of drug-fueled antics, cancelled concerts and run-ins with the law that even the notoriously voracious British paparazzi have struggled to keep up. In late 2006, just as her career was really starting to take off, photos of a dazed and confused Amy, rat's nest beehive atop a stick-thin frame, were supplemented with reports of onstage drug-taking and befuddled attempts to promote her record-breaking second album, Back to Black. Arriving at the 2007 Brit Awards with Jamelia, she looked like she hadn't slept in a week. The 24-year-old daughter of a North London cabbie had floored critics and music lovers the world over with her unearthly singing talent and soulful lyrics. After winning her country folk over with Back to Black, she turned her charm on the Americans.
I'm just chilling. I'm just here to see Amy Winehouse.
Is she your girl? What is it about her?
I don't know. I just love her. She don't care what anybody thinks about her. That's how I got in the game, so I love anybody that do that. I love it.
And are you a fan of Amy Winehouse?
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. I'm actually looking forward to seeing her perform tonight.
I'd like to see Amy Winehouse. You know, I really like what she's doing. I'm hoping she'll show up and knock it out the park.
While she did manage to put in an appearance that night, Amy's increasing inability to hold it together had already put her on a fast train to oblivion. In August 2007, After a series of intoxicated performances, she was forced to cancel shows in the UK and Europe due to so-called exhaustion and ill health. Powerless to talk sense into their self-destructive offspring, both Blake and Amy's fathers tried intervening through the press. While Giles Fielder Civil suggested that the best way to send a strong message was to stop buying Amy's music, Mitchell Winehouse contended that a boycott would only make matters worse.
It's not going to have any effect. If I thought it would have some effect, then obviously it would be a good idea. The people buy her albums because they like her music and they like Amy. And, you know, if we took a unilateral decision like that, not that it would be possible, all that would happen is it would force Amy and Blake closer together and feel that the world was against them even more than they feel that it is now, and it would make the situation worse.
By the end of the year, the couple had been arrested in Norway for possessing cannabis, and Blake was in prison after attempting to pervert the course of justice by bribing a pub landlord he'd attacked not to testify against him in court. Throughout it all, Amy, who had never made a secret of her problems with self-harm, continued to sell millions of records and rake in the awards. Not only was Back to Black the world's biggest-selling album of 2007, its aptly named lead single Rehab cleaned up at the Q, Ivor Novello and Mobo Awards. In December, photos of Amy walking around London in jeans and a bra coincided with the news that she'd been nominated for an incredible 6 Grammy Awards. But even as the nominations were being announced, comedian George Lopez was cracking jokes about Amy's famous flakiness.
Can somebody wake her up this afternoon around 6 and tell her? Drunk ass. Right. She makes Lindsay Lohan look cool, though.
While Amy was unavailable for comment, her Back to Black producer Mark Ronson was sticking up for her. With everyone asserting she was a goner, he was playing against the doom and gloomers.
But she's smart, and when I met her, she had just come through a really tough time, and she came right out of that, and that's why we came up with the Rehab record, and I think she's going to be fine. She's smart enough not to piss it away.
However, it became clear that even her most loyal disciple had lost faith when he scrapped plans to collaborate with her on the theme song for the James Bond film Quantum of Solace, due to Amy's continued problems with drugs. Mark wasn't on hand to comment when a video of Amy apparently smoking crack cocaine made it into the hands of the police. An arrest followed, and with the paparazzi permanently parked outside her home, every tragic detail of Amy's disintegration was blown up in full colour, alongside rumours that she was suffering from emphysema and brain damage. In January 2009, it began to look as though the tattooed diva might be on her way to a comeback, when she was snapped looking healthy and happy on holiday in St. Lucia with actor Josh Bowman. She was quoted as saying, "I'm in love again and I don't need drugs," and admitted, "For the time being, I've just forgotten that I'm married." However, her recovery seemed to have hit a stumbling block when she was rushed to hospital in St. Lucia after fainting in her villa. Her affair with Josh Bowman had prompted Blake to file for divorce, citing Amy's adultery as the cause. Amy's initial response was to insist that she still wanted Blake back, but in the end decided not to contest the divorce, and in July it became official. As always, the tabloids were all over the story like a rash, with Richard Pepiat from the Daily Star speculating on the size of settlement the former video production assistant could expect to receive from the multi-Grammy-winning songbird.
I think that the position that she's in is that when she admits adultery through a marriage, however tempestuous that marriage happened to be, she's probably going to end up having to shell out something. Whether it be half her fortune, I don't know, but I think maybe $1 million, maybe $2 million is more a likely figure that we may see being handed over.
But more importantly, readers wanted to know just what effect the divorce was likely to have on Amy's famously fragile temperament.
It's been a very tumultuous relationship. There's been a lot of ups and downs, and of course I'm sure she is heartbroken. I mean, effectively they've not been together for quite a while now. This isn't something they've broken up last week. He's been in jail, she's been in St. Lucia. They've not really seen each other, not had much contact. So I doubt that she's going to be amazingly heartbroken today. Maybe the fact that this is now official, it's not just a theory, is going to have an effect on her. I'm sure she's upset. She's got a lot going on in her life at the moment. You know, only she knows how she feels about this, and only they know, you know, how this is all broken down.
Her breathtaking beauty and fondness for tattoos have prompted the fashion magazines to earmark Megan Fox as the new Angelina Jolie. But the Transformers star from Tennessee is having none of it.
I just think that she has tattoos, really. I think it's really like a lack of creativity on the media's part. I'm a brunette with tattoos. I curse, and I've made mention of sex before, and I make jokes about it, which people find outrageous. So they want to constantly compare that to her, I think.
In fact, Megan has claimed she's horrified at the thought of Angelina hearing about the constant comparisons and says she'd be too embarrassed to meet her. But despite the protests, the two stars have far more in common than Megan is willing to admit. Apart from being tipped to take over from La Jolie as Lara Croft in the next instalment of Tomb Raider, they both share a penchant for opening up about their sexual preferences. Like Angelina before her, the former model has confessed to being bisexual. In an interview in 2008, she spilled the beans on her teenage love affair with a Russian stripper called Nikita, and went on to say that she believed that all humans are born with the ability to be attracted to both sexes. Not surprisingly, her revelation did nothing to harm her status as a cover model favourite for men's magazines such as Maxim, Esquire and FHM. Nor did it damage her position in the Sexiest Woman polls. The same year, she came in at #1 on a poll of FHM readers and was also ranked first on Moviephone's list of the 25 hottest actors under 25. In fact, Megan Fox's popularity in the media reached such a peak that in July 2009, several men's websites called for a boycott. One particular male blog dubbed August the 4th as a day without Megan Fox, and several other sites followed suit, vowing not to feature her image or mention her name for one whole day. In response to the boycott, Megan blamed the promotional machine behind the Transformers movies and said she hoped that people wouldn't get sick of her before she'd had the chance to really prove herself as an actress. However, it wasn't her acting that the media were interested in. Upon the release of the second film in the blockbuster franchise, all reporters wanted to know was whether she was dating her hot young co-star Shia LaBeouf. As usual, Megan didn't hold back on her response.
We have just a really good natural chemistry, and I enjoy the shit out of him. Where are you trying to air this? You're gonna have to bleep me a lot. I enjoy his personality a lot. He's really witty, like absurdly so. He just is relentless in how funny he is, and I love him to death. And we sort of have like a natural banter, brother-sister relationship that we both enjoy.
Meanwhile, Shia let on that from his point of view, the door was definitely open to something more.
You know, we've been working with each other for like years now. She's a very attractive girl. I'm a red-blooded 23-year-old. I mean, I get it. It makes sense to me. But it's just a professional relationship. I mean, regardless of what my wishes and hopes would be.
Over the past few years, however, Megan has had an on and off relationship with Beverly Hills actor Brian Austin Green, although more recently it seems to have been more off than on. And despite the paparazzi's best efforts to find out whether she'll go the way of Lindsay Lohan with her next relationship, she insists there's nothing to see here.
You know, a lot of people ask me if my life is totally different and it's changed, and it hasn't, because my lifestyle is still exactly what it always was. I never leave my house. I stay home. I'm extremely boring and private.
He's a second-generation Hollywood A-lister with an Emmy, Golden Globe, and 2 Academy Awards under his belt. One as a producer and one as a leading man. But a lifetime spent at the top in Hollywood means a lifetime under a relentless public gaze, and only a saint could come through that unscathed. which is why Michael Douglas has had his fair share of public controversy. Heavenly creature, he ain't. Michael's decision to be in the movies was made in his teens. Not a surprising choice, considering his father Kirk was one of the biggest stars of his day. After success as the producer of the Academy Award-winning One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Michael finally found his break as a leading man in the 1984 romantic adventure comedy Romancing the Stone. The hits just kept coming, with 1987's Fatal Attraction, followed by an Academy Award for Best Actor in Wall Street. Fatal Attraction was the first in a trilogy of films including Basic Instinct and Disclosure about sex and sexuality. Given his reputation as a womanizer, Michael was soon painted in the media as sex-obsessed, the idea given further credence when he checked himself into rehab in 1992. With rumours abounding, he was suffering from sex addiction. It seemed Michael was up to his old tricks when he started dating Catherine Zeta-Jones in 1989, a woman 25 years his junior. But it turned out that nothing could be further from the truth. Michael's love for Catherine seemingly changed his life, and they now have 2 children.
Just that family unit. We're gonna hang in tight. I mean, Catherine and I are talking about doing a movie together called Monkey Face. Stephen Frears directing in the fall, which allow us in parts to stay together as a family unit and just savor being a dad and a good husband, which I never thought I'd hear myself say.
But Michael's past seemingly came back to haunt him when 33-year-old woman Dawnette Knight was charged with stalking and sending severe death threats to his new wife Catherine. Both Dawnette's lawyer and her fiancé claimed she was motivated by her sexual obsession with Michael, an obsession allegedly fueled by his past relations with her.
I'm saying she did have an affair with Michael Douglas. She's told me, in her most weakest moment, because she knew how hurt I was. So the truth is coming out. These Hollywood figures, they're nothing more, than people just like everyone out here.
Dawnette later apologized to Catherine and her father-in-law, Kirk Douglas, for her actions.
It speaks for itself. We're happy. It's all relieved that it's all over, and the chapter begins for everybody's life now.
The new chapter didn't get off to the best of starts. Michael's son Cameron, from his first marriage, was arrested in 2007 on possession of cocaine charges. Then in 2009, he was arrested on the more serious charge of dealing methamphetamine from a hotel room in New York. Michael Douglas may have found marital bliss as husband to Catherine Zeta-Jones, but his role as father seems to be proving slightly more problematic.